The responsibilities of a governor is to sign bills into law. Tonight, we're taking a closer look at one of the bills signed by former Florida Governor Lawton Chiles. TV20's Kayla Lewis tells us about the Marchman Act and why his own daughter is challenging the way it's used in healthcare facilities.
Lawton Chiles became governor in 1991 before dying in office in 1998. He signed hundreds of bills, including what is known as the Marchman Act in 1993. It was created to help people struggling with substance abuse. It allows families and friends to petition the court to assess and treat their loved one when they are refusing to seek help voluntarily. A Marchman Act petition can be filed by a spouse, relative, or other adult with personal knowledge of the person's substance abuse, including a doctor or nurse. A magistrate will see if it meets certain criteria, including loss of self-control and risk of harm. If so, the court can order treatment. Last year, House Bill 7021 was passed, making significant changes to the act. This includes more law enforcement discretion in detaining individuals. You now only have to go to the courthouse once and fill out an involuntary petition to allege an emergency exists among someone you've seen firsthand struggle with substance abuse. I sat down with the daughter of former Governor Lawton Chiles, who has a firsthand account of being held under the Marchman Act. She says the law is not being used the way her father intended, and now she wants to see changes made.
And he said to me, "You can't leave because we've Marchmaned you." And that was when my whole life changed.
Rhea Chiles is the daughter of former Governor Lawton Chiles and was recently released from UF Health's Florida Recovery Center in Gainesville after being held under the Marchman Act, signed by her dad Lawton Chiles in 1993.
I had never heard of the Marchman Act. I now know a lot about the Marchman Act because my beloved late father signed it into law for a good cause.
Rhea admits she struggled with alcoholism on and off for years and is now in liver failure. On June 4th, she had her 4th surgery on her pancreas for a blocked portal lobe. After a successful procedure, she was released, but just 2 days later, she was back at Shands because of alarming lab results. Rhea says doctors told her those numbers were a sign of possible organ failure. For nearly 3 weeks, she went through numerous tests in order to justify a place on the liver transplant list.
Of course, I was very, very frightened at that point. I felt like I had been dropped into a foreign bubble bath.
When she was set to go home and live with her doctor, who specializes in addiction treatment, she planned to participate in an alcohol relapse prevention program. But doctors at Shands stopped her from leaving, telling her she was being held under the Marchman Act.
It was the beginning of the nightmare, and it was like one strip at a time of you're losing like all of your rights, your contact with the outside world.
Rhea says she willingly told them she'd do a 2-week recovery program at Florida Recovery Center, but when she got there, she was told she'd be held under the act for at least 30 days.
It's very apparent that the people who have money, they'll grab you and Marchman you, which is so traumatic.
Her attorney says FRC was paid about $20,000 by Rhea's insurance every month she was held.
And I don't understand what's so important about the money versus a human life.
This turned into a stay of more than 60 days, but Rhea's attorney says doctors tried to hold her for 90 due to her contesting the act. She says 90 days would have been half of the time she was told she had left to live without receiving a liver transplant.
I was getting sicker while I was there, and I felt sicker.
Rhea's attorney says she should not have been involuntarily committed because Florida statute requires clear and convincing evidence that Rhea's decision to refuse treatment at FRC was irrational.
It can literally turn anybody in 3 days from feeling like a healthy, proactive adult who wants to take care of their health care into like this little scared child.
Rhea believes her stay at FRC made her sicker, losing 15 pounds while there and developing adult onset diabetes, all while being kicked off the transplant list. She says she felt like a prisoner, stripped of her belongings. Before her release, Rhea was taken to Shands Vista because of pancreatitis and very high glucose levels. Doctors gave her opioids to help, but she says they called this a relapse. Rhea says she feels like the center is abusing the Marchman Act for their own financial gain, not having people's best interest or recovery in mind.
It was such a shame to see like how somebody could take such a good law, such a life-preserving law that my late father signed into act in the state of Florida to become an abusive tool to gain money.
You want it being done for the right reason. You want the individual to buy into the treatment, because if they don't buy into the treatment, they're not going to get anywhere.
Paul Figueroa is a lawyer who specializes in substance abuse, often dealing with Marchman Act cases. He says he personally has not dealt with cases where people claim the act is abused, but he says it can happen.
You can have a petitioner that's not doing it for the right reasons, and that there's motivation to get them out of the house or to punish somebody, or you did it to me, I'm going to do it to you. So it's imperative that the courts are looking at all of those reasons and just determining whether or not the person meets criteria based on the evidence and the evidence alone.
While Florida is the only state to use the Marchman Act, other states do have similar laws in place. Casey's law is Kentucky and Ohio's version of the act. It was signed into law in 2004. And in 2020, it was challenged in court by someone who was ordered to undergo treatment, claiming the law doesn't offer any guidelines or regulations for treatment. In 2022, it was amended to say the burden of proof required for involuntary treatment must be beyond a reasonable doubt, not just probable cause. As for the Marchman Act, in 2024 in Alachua County, 166 Marchman Acts were served, and in Marion County, 140 made it to court. 57 of those were granted.
My father put this up as a good law to protect and save lives and save families and preserve family unitedness, and they're abusing it and tearing people apart.
Now Rhea wants to see changes made, including a closer look at how facilities can use the act and how it's financed. Her end goal, for the act to be corruption-proof.
What trauma it's caused me will be long-lasting. I mean, it's really affected me.
Rhea's release was granted by the court. She is now pursuing other avenues in hopes of getting a spot on a different hospital's liver transplant list. She says she's healthy enough to undergo a transplant. We reached out to UF Health on this story multiple times, but they declined to comment.
Kayla joins us now, and you spoke to people at Meridian Healthcare. Now, that's a nonprofit group that also treats people with mental health disorders or substance abuse, both adults and children. What did they tell you? How do they use the Marchman Act?
Yes, so officials at Meridian Healthcare serve as the central intake facility for Marchman Act cases, rotating with UF Health. Again, someone can be placed under this act by courts, law enforcement, medical professionals, or loved ones. The administrator of the central receiving facility says Marchman Acts come in at a relatively low rate, leading them to believe it may be underutilized. Take a listen.
I don't see what the benefit would be to abuse it. I feel like when folks come in on a Marchman Act and they're placed in these involuntary situations, like at our facility, I will just use our facility as an example, anything outside of what's expected for the Marchman Act would have to be run through the courts.
And when someone is held under the Marchman Act, it is their right to have a hearing within 10 court working days of being placed under it to determine if it's valid or not.
Thanks for this report this evening, Kayla. And please keep us up to date on Rhea's search as she tries to get on that transplant list.
Yes, of course.
All right, we'll be right back.